First, let me say thank you, and I am so honored to share this moment with Arnie and with Marcia, two of my dear friends. I was telling Arnie a little earlier tonight that, I said, doesn't tonight kind of remind you of your bar mitzvah? When's the last time you had to get up and give a speech like this, huh? Yeah, that was a long time ago. It also means the world to me that my family is here tonight over at that table, including my best friend from Dallas, Talmadge, Boston. And thank you for standing by me. I'm really also honored, so many close friends here, and so I want to say I'm standing here tonight and just really counting my blessings. It says a lot about MCA that tonight marks our 65th anniversary in Fort Worth. It says that the work we do is important, and it says that this community embraces the work that we do. Like most of us, I'm involved in a number of causes, and each of these organizations means a lot to me, but here's why MCA tops my list. MCA brings people together. MCA breaks down barriers that separate us, and today more than ever, we need an organization that champions that mission. So Arnie was talking about the milestone and the important crossroads we were at about 11 years ago when we made the decision to keep NCCJ alive in Fort Worth. I want to add to that about a year later we were at another important crossroads. Our longtime executive director, Emily Trantham, retired. And I want to tell you there was truly an angel on our shoulders when we found Dr. Cheryl Kimberling to step into that role. During the interviews, I teased with Cheryl about the fact that she and my wife, Laurie, both come from Memphis. And I said, there's just something about you Memphis girls. And indeed there is. So tonight we celebrate not only our 65th anniversary, but we also celebrate Cheryl's 10th anniversary as our dynamic executive director. And thank you, Cheryl, for bringing your special Memphis magic to Fort Worth and MCA. So like Marcia and Arnie, I have been involved in MCA for a long, long time. And let me share a couple of my favorite memories from my journey. I remember the night that we honored Rosie and Mike Moncrief, and I'll never forget Rosie's speech, because Rosie made the point that a newborn child's mind is like a blank cassette. Now, for those of you who are like more than a generation below me, that's like a CD, okay, that you record stuff on, okay? But after the child is born, that cassette starts to be filled with messages, mostly from the child's parents, but later from friends and teachers. And Rosie's point is that no one is born a bigot. We learn to hate. But if we can learn to hate, we can also unlearn. We can fill that tape with new messages to override the old messages. And that's exactly what MCA does. And one of the key places that MCA does that is at Camp Community. About a dozen years ago, Emily Trantham approached me with this bizarre idea that I should take a week off of work to be a counselor, an advisor at Camp Community, which was then known as Camp Anytown. And my initial reaction to her was, no way. I said, how could I possibly take a week off of work? And secondly, I said, as an older and serious lawyer, how could I possibly relate to a group of cool high school students? Because let me tell you, I was and am anything but cool. Well, Emily would not take a no. She enticed me so much when she told me that she'd also invited our daughter Lizzie to be a Camp Anytown counselor. And moreover, Emily said she thought my worldview was narrow. And she said, you know, Marvin, you need the Camp Anytown experience for your own personal growth. And I said, you know, those words sting, but it worked. I said, because how could I say no at that point? So in spite of my resistance, I went to camp for a week. Well, let me tell you about the magic that happens at camp. When I arrived there, I soon learned that my fears were not unique. As the 75 campers got off the bus, I learned that they felt the same trepidations that I felt. Most confessed that they didn't really want to come, but they gave in to the pressure to attend, much like I did. So picture this scene. 75 nervous teens get off the bus, coming from all kinds of diverse backgrounds. There's Protestant, there's Jewish, there's Muslim, there's Hindu, there's African American, there's Hispanic, you name it. No one knew the others, and they were being told that you're going to come together as a family. Well, at that point, no one believed it. And the natural tendency was to look for someone just like you and separate from the group, and frankly, I felt the same way. I was looking for Lizzie. Well, over the next 5 days, magic happened both for the campers and for me. Emily was really right. We were divided into small families called share groups. And when you looked around the group, no one in the group looked like you. And let me tell you, we did lots of activities in these share groups where you couldn't hide. One girl in my group, Renee, was painfully shy. Let me tell you, this girl could hardly speak. And there was another kid in my group, an African-American boy named Julian, who was angry and bitter. And he talked about dropping out of school, and he said he didn't want to participate in any of these activities, so he was just going to stay off to the side and observe. So for 5 days, the campers, the counselors, the advisors, we all lived together. We ate together. We sang together, even me. We did workshops together to gradually open our minds and open our hearts. And gradually our inhibitions and fears vanished. So let me tell you that in an activity later in the week, we were divided into ethnic groups. Mine was the Jewish group, and we all had name tags to identify our group. So for an entire day, you were prohibited from talking to anyone who wasn't in your group. Well, by this point in the week, we had become connected. And let me tell you that this separation activity was torture. It would have been very comfortable 5 days earlier. It was torture. At the end of the day, someone finally got the courage to rebel and break the separation rule, and then everyone followed him. And the hugging that occurred at that point was the most amazing thing I've ever witnessed. I remember hugging a fellow advisor, an African-American woman named Adrian, who I had just met days before, and I was hugging her like I never wanted to let go. You know, it was an amazing feeling. So as camp was coming to a close, we had a final candlelight friendship circle, and the microphone was passed around. And this Hispanic boy in the group named Dustin said that his birthday was approaching, and before camp he said he had no friends to invite to his party, but now a big group from camp was going to go celebrate his birthday with him. Wow. Let me tell you about Julian, the angry fellow from my share group. He ended up being one of the stars of our talent show. And it turns out that he was an incredible athlete, and he was inspired to go home from camp, pursue an athletic scholarship, and end up going to college. That was huge. Let me tell you what happened when the microphone came to Renee, who 5 days before could not have spoken into a microphone. You would not have heard her. This girl speaks in a loud and clear voice about her personal growth at camp. Let me tell you, Camp Anytown, now Camp Community, transformed her. Let me tell you, it transformed all of us. So when the mic came to me, I confessed about not wanting to come to camp either. And I shared how nervous I was about connecting with these cool kids their age. And I said, especially, here I am, an uncool lawyer. And let me tell you, this circle of kids, 75 kids, starts shouting out, "Marvin, you cool!" and I thought, well, not really. But I did feel accepted, and I felt cool at that moment. And let me tell you, I definitely felt loved. So the scene getting back on the bus to leave camp could not have been more opposite than the scene getting off the bus 5 days earlier. People say goodbye differently than they say hello. You have never seen such hugging and crying and connectedness. Camp community is life-changing. At camp, we learn that it's easy for people to hate in the abstract. They say things like, "I hate all Jews," or I hate all Muslims. But then you actually get to know one, and you discover that you don't hate that person at all. And then it makes you question, how can you hate people that you don't even know? That's how the process of unlearning prejudice begins. Everyone at camp committed to return home, carry the message of acceptance back into their own communities. As the philosopher Voltaire taught, each camper went home to cultivate his own garden. And when my daughter Lizzie was a camper, she returned to Trinity Valley School, and she became the driving force to create a new diversity club that still exists today, some 15 years later. And then when she was in college, she took a program called Hate in the Hallways and taught it in the New York public schools. So it had changed her life. For me, camp community ignited a passion to serve MCA, a passion that burns deeper than ever within me. My best friend, as I mentioned earlier, is Talmadge Boston over here, who was in my law school roommate who saw me leave for a week to go to Miss America. He covered for me. Talmadge's a lawyer in Dallas, and he's a baseball historian and an author. Talmadge tells the story of Jackie Robinson, who broke the color barrier in Major League Baseball. And he uses this story to describe the kind of ripple effect that campers have when they return home from camp community. At Robinson's funeral, it was said that Jackie was a rock thrown in the water who created concentric circles and ripples of new possibilities for others. Talmadge also writes that in the world of prejudice and discrimination, everyone breaks into two groups, insiders and outsiders. Well, let me tell you, at camp community, there are no insiders and outsiders. We are all one. But that doesn't mean we all speak with the same voice. At camp, we learn to see our commonalities, but we also learn to appreciate and celebrate our differences. My daughter Lizzie tells me that in the Jewish religion, there is a concept in the Torah called Symphony of the Stars. Each person in the universe has to sing his own song. And when you start singing someone else's notes, it throws everything off balance. So I'll close with the words from a song that captures exactly what we do at the Multicultural Alliance. If all the world were a concert, what a wonderful world it would be. The notes we would play would be different, and the instruments won't sound the same. But every man and his brother would synchronize with one another, and the splendid blend would always end in harmony. So I ask you to please join me in supporting MCA. Let's cultivate a garden here in Fort Worth and build a community where everyone can make his own kind of music, but we can live together in harmony. Thank you.